Have you ever wondered, in the garden of your soul, which seed is sprouting most vigorously? The seed of dreams or the weed of procrastination? The story I'm about to tell is the journey of a young man who had to confront that very battle, a silent war that would determine his entire future. In a peaceful village nestled by a gentle river, lived a young man named Ethan. Ethan was not lacking in dreams. On the contrary, his mind was always brimming with grand ideas, magnificent plans. He could sit for hours, telling everyone about a prosperous farm he would build, about unique fruit trees he would bring to cultivate, or about a spacious house overlooking the fields that he would design himself. Ethan's words were always fiery, full of passion, making anyone who listened believe he was born to do extraordinary things. Yet that fire seemed to burn only in his words. Each morning, as the dawn light filtered through his window, instead of waking to begin a day's work, Ethan would choose to curl up in his warm blanket, telling himself, "Just for today, tomorrow, I will definitely start." Ethan's tomorrow stretched from one day to the next, turning his grand ambitions into empty promises swept away by the wind. Uncle Arthur, Ethan's paternal uncle, was a seasoned farmer with keen eyes and hands calloused from years of labor. He saw in his nephew a great potential being buried by idleness. He didn't scold or lecture, for he knew that empty words would never stir a soul accustomed to procrastination. One afternoon, he called Ethan to the abandoned plot of land behind the house, a barren but promising piece of earth. He placed 2 small cloth bags into Ethan's hands. "Inside here," Uncle Arthur said, his voice deep and warm, "are 2 types of seeds that will determine your future. The bag on the right contains the seed of ambition. It is very small, humble. For it to sprout and grow into a sturdy, fruit-laden tree, you must pour in your sweat and effort. You must till the soil until it's loose, water it regularly every day, remove pests, pull weeds, and wait patiently. It demands all your dedication." Then he pointed to the other bag. "And in this very soil, there are already countless seeds of idleness. These are weed seeds. You don't need to sow them, you don't need to care for them, you don't need to water them. They will sprout on their own. They multiply very quickly, grow vigorously, and will find every way to choke out everything around them." Uncle Arthur looked deep into Ethan's eyes and spoke one last sentence. "This land is yours. Choose how you will cultivate it." Ethan took the bag of seed of ambition, his heart filled with determination. This time would be different, he promised himself. He spent an entire day tilling the soil, clearing weeds, and sowing the tiny seeds into the earth with all his hope. On the first day, he woke early and watered the seedlings. The second day was the same. But by the third day, the previous night's rain had left the ground damp, and Ethan thought, "I probably don't need to water today." Then he slept in a little longer. A few tiny weed sprouts began to emerge. Ethan looked at them, clicking his tongue. "They're so small I can pull them tomorrow." That "I can pull them tomorrow" paved the way for disaster. The seeds of idleness, just as Uncle Arthur had said, grew at an alarming rate. They took deep root, spread quickly, forming a lush green but insidious carpet. They grew tall, blocking out the sunlight, greedily sucking up all the water and nutrients from the soil. The fragile sprout of the seed of ambition, which had just emerged from the ground, was surrounded and choked by the weeds. It was stunted, yellowing, desperately trying to reach for the sky amidst a forest of aggressive invaders. Ethan occasionally visited the plot, but each time he saw the weeds growing thicker, he felt disheartened. "There's too much. How can I pull it all?" he mumbled, then turned back to the house, seeking temporary pleasures to forget the creeping sense of failure within him. The plot of land where he had once placed so much hope had now become a symbol of his own procrastination and neglected dreams. A month later, Uncle Arthur returned. He didn't utter a single word of reproach. He simply stood silently beside Ethan, looking at the desolate plot, where the weeds had grown waist-high. The sprout of ambition, once so full of promise, was now just a withered husk, suffocated amidst the vigorous life of the weeds. "Do you see, Ethan?" Uncle Arthur gently spoke. "Laziness and procrastination are just like these weeds. You don't need to plant them. They will still grow on their own, strong and relentless. They take root in your mind from the smallest thoughts like, 'I'll do it tomorrow,' or 'just a little bit more.' As for ambition, it is as fragile as that small plant. It needs your care, your sweat, and your discipline every day, every hour. Ambition doesn't grow on its own through words or beautiful dreams. It grows through action, no matter how small." Every word from Uncle Arthur was like a hammer blow to Ethan's heart. He looked at the weeds, then at his still clean hands. He suddenly realized that those weeds were the embodiment of all the times he had said, "I'll do it tomorrow." All the times he had chosen temporary comfort over effort. And the dead ambition plant was the future he had personally choked. A deep sense of shame and regret welled up within Ethan. For the first time in his life, he didn't try to escape. His tears fell, mingling with the barren soil. The next day, people saw a completely different Ethan. He no longer spoke a word about grand plans. He simply picked up a hoe and a sickle and walked out to the plot. Under the scorching summer sun, he began his battle. He pulled out every weed, tilled every clod of earth. His soft hands quickly blistered and bled. His back ached and sweat drenched his shirt. Many times he wanted to give up, but the image of the withered ambition plant reappeared, urging him to continue. He wasn't just clearing weeds from the land, he was uprooting the deep-seated laziness within himself. After many days of strenuous labor, the plot was finally cleared. Ethan sowed a new seed of ambition, but this time, he sowed it with all his reverence and an ironclad vow. Every day for Ethan now began with this plot of land. The first thing he did upon waking was to go water the plant, pulling out any weed sprouts that had just emerged. Caring for the small plant became a ritual, a practice in perseverance and discipline. He realized that eliminating laziness was not a one-time battle, but a daily struggle. Each weed pulled was a small victory against procrastination. Day by day, the ambition plant grew larger. Its trunk became sturdier, its leaves greener. It stretched vigorously towards the sun, just like Ethan's will and determination. Along with the growth of the plant, Ethan also matured. He applied the discipline and perseverance learned from the garden to everything else. He researched, learned cultivation techniques, transforming the small plot into a lush, experimental garden. Many years later, Ethan didn't just have one plant. He had an entire prosperous farm, famous throughout the region for its sweet, delicious fruits. He had built the spacious house he had always dreamed of, overlooking the vast fields, the fruit of his own labor. But his greatest asset was not the farm or the house, but the profound lesson from all those years ago. Occasionally, as he walked through his garden, Ethan would still see a few weeds trying to sprout in some corner. He would smile, calmly bend down, and pull them out. He knew that the seeds of idleness would never completely disappear. They would always be there, waiting for an opportunity, waiting for a moment of carelessness to resurface. But now, Ethan was no longer afraid. He had learned that as long as one consistently tends to the garden of their ambition every day, watering it with action, no weed can ever overshadow the light of dreams. So what about you? In the garden of your own soul, which weeds are you allowing to grow? Don't wait for a tomorrow that never comes. Because your ambition, just like a fragile seedling, needs your care starting today. Begin with the smallest action. Pull out the first weed of procrastination and water the seed of your dream with the first drop of effort.